So let's look at what the completed animation would look like when we've added in the second stride of the complete walk cycle. So you can see I've got exactly the same thing, but just further up here on the animation. And just like before, we've repeated the contact position at the end just as a reference, but we're not using it in our actual loop. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like when we play it back. So you can see each frame, or each extreme, is being held for 3 frames. So it gives us a slightly jerky motion, but even with just the key poses put in, you can actually see how this is a fairly convincing walk cycle, and we can get that nice bobbing up and down, and we can see how the arms are stretching and squashing. So it's fairly convincing, but I think it's enough to call a basic walk cycle, and it's a great place to start. So the next process is to actually try and smooth this out, to try and actually add in your in-betweens here. If you take this down to ones, where you have unique frames for every single frame, then your action is going to be that much smoother. So in order to do this, the process is very much the same that we've been doing so far using onion skinning. If I wanted to add in 2 ones in here, let's look at our timeline and come in here. And actually, let's mark these in red. We go 1 to 4, naturally we'd need to add in betweens 2 and 3, 5 and 6, etc., etc., all the way through to the end. And you're essentially doing every single frame. So if we take extreme 1 and bring it back, and then we take extreme 4, we can bring that back as well. And I actually coloured this green in this case, but really I would keep this at red. Let's put this back to red. Again, we can duplicate our temp layer here, and this is going to be IB, or in between 2. Okay. This has been put down here, so let's just pull that up. And we're only holding it for 1. And so now I've got IB2. I could just duplicate this guy, IB3, in between 3. Make those visible. And I like to colour my in-betweens blue, so you can see exactly where they are, and make sure they're in the correct spot on the timeline. So these are going to be completely unique drawings, so it makes sense to start with 2 blank layers. And the process is the same. We go to our onion skinning, settings. We want to go 1 frame before for this in between 2. So it's very faint, and we want to go how many frames after? 2 frames after. Now remember that this is a jump of 2 frames, so if I were to draw my first in-between here, this is where you have to start getting a little cautious about how you do this. Look at how the body's moving. It starts at the center point and it dips. So you've got 2 frames that help to ease that transition from high to low. Make sure you've got the correct layer selected. Try and, as best you can, sort of commit to memory where those are. We're really moving from here to here, so I want to sort of come a third of the way down there. Make sure I've got the right color. A third of the way down. Same with the lower half of the body. Third of the way down, and you just have to get more precise with your in-betweens. I would actually start with just the body, move along to the next frame in between 3, so we're not quite as low as this one, we're just going to be a little bit higher, so we'll go roughly here. Still a little bit higher than this one here. And again, fill out the volume. And at this point, what I would probably do is just temporarily turn off onion skinning and just roll it. So you can see we're transitioning from one to the other, one to the other. And once you feel confident with that, you can actually start to come back with onion skinning again, work on the arms, enable onion skins. And you can see that we're moving down into this outward pose. So I'd bring the arm down a bit, and I would bring it here to here, about a third of the way across. So thinking about those curves, bring the hand to here, and the arm is down, coming down, and try and transition. It takes practice and it gets a little confusing sometimes, but you just have to try and transition between the two. I'll just do one arm in this case. Let's move to the next one. Between here and here. The arm is coming again further down. Take it to here. It's almost as low as where it needs to be in the final position, actually. And because we're bunching here, the arm's going to be slowing down as it reaches, its final position. So you can see how that's reaching that position. Let's take onion skinning off, take a look at that. You can see how we're progressing with those in-betweens. We're doing it fairly linearly at this point. You can think about slow in, slow out later on. And I would probably tweak this and adjust this so it didn't look like it was rolling so much. It kind of looks like it's boiling rather than actually dipping. Actually bring it a little bit lower down, I think. And maybe solidify this frame here. Make sure we know that that's lower down still. There we go. It's just looking a bit more natural now. Same thing with the legs. Onion skinning back on. Think about how your legs are transitioning. Let's do the front leg. Transitioning from here to here. So, roughly get that foot coming down here. And get the legs starting to kink here. Coming down. Next frame, third of the way across. Foot's pretty much all the way down. Almost. Much more of a kink in play now. But again, don't trust the onion skins completely. Take them off. Do a roll. You can see how that leg is transitioning, and you can clean that up later. Exactly the same thing with the head, the other arm, the other leg. And that's how you would break that down into these additional in-between poses. Just do some straight ahead animation. Keep practicing with onion skinning on, onion skinning off. And then once you've completed that, you'll end up with a walk cycle on ones. So let's take a look at that. And you can see that I've actually adjusted my entire time chart here, and you can see that it's broken down into ones. And we've got a lot more frames in our timeline. And we'll play it back. And you can see straight away how much smoother that motion is. And it's not a perfect walk cycle by any means, but it's that much more realistic, it's that much more believable than when we had it just with the key poses. So adding in those in-betweens really helps to solidify and complete that walk cycle. And you can do that differently. You can do it on twos. If you have a slower walk cycle, you can just vary it depending on the length of time that you decide for this cycle. So that's how to create a walk cycle from start to finish. Now you can actually start practicing and working with your custom character on top of these frames and creating a more interesting cycle.